We will now start with the first of our 4 VC and tech-focused panel discussions of today. I'm sure they're going to provide us with some innovative insights and robust discussions around the many facets of the venture capital environment. We have the very good fortune to benefit from the experience and know-how of some of the smartest venture capital experts around, and Jada has assembled a stellar array of international and local expertise. One of the bedrocks of the Kingdom's economic success in the past, the present, and indeed the future, is the continuing strength, innovation, and development of the family business sector in the country. This makes it highly appropriate that we commence our panel discussions by looking at how the venture capital sector and family offices can work together for mutual benefit in the future. To look deeper into this, our panel comprises of Isaac Applebaum, the co-founder and partner of MCAM Capital; Omar Al-Mashri, the founding partner at Reed Ventures; Ziad Al-Tunzi, Group CEO of the Al-Fazliya Group; and joining us via video link, Nathaniel Montana, General Partner at Liquid 2 Ventures. And to keep the conversation going, we have Jada's Director of VC Investments, Mazen El-Shamlali.
Thank you everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to have everyone here today. First of all, I would like to thank my panelists for making it here today. I know they're super busy, and let's just get to it. Everybody had the benefit of the introduction, so I'm going to skip that and just get to the meat of this discussion. So this discussion, just to give a little bit of a backdrop around family offices and family offices sort of little by little exposure into this asset class, very exciting and interesting asset class that was for a long time sort of a black box to a lot of family offices, and now they're sort of figuring out the inner workings of the asset class itself, the sort of return rewards, risk-reward dynamics of the asset class itself. And they're little by little starting to increase their exposure into the asset class, and we're here today to sort of learn from the journeys of several family offices and how they sort of made the evolution of into this asset class and into this business. So without any further ado, I would like to start with just a very quick question to both Ziad and Omar, coming from sort of a family office setup, and then sort of making a conscious decision to go into this asset class, especially here in the region. Just briefly, if you can describe that journey into the VC sort of ecosystem, from inception to building the conviction, all the way to the actual execution, and how you were able to sort of evolve into that. I'll leave it between you gentlemen. Who goes first?
Yes, thank you. Has been interesting journey. I mean, give you a background. Fazliya Group is more of private equity holding. Venture investment and new economy investment was not something we have done, know about it years back. And had to go through the journey of learning and understanding, and also to be relevant with the ecosystem. Yet at the same time to be humble enough to know that it's a different asset class altogether, different than what we do or used to do in the past. So we went through a journey of discovery. Personally, I had to allocate personal time, to learn and understand more. And we were contemplating what would be our corporate venture model and how we should go about it. And we thought maybe we can deploy our own money directly into the VC space, which was not a good idea at all. I mean, we had to learn and go through the learning process. Second, we thought maybe we can hire a team internally another not a good advice at all, because hiring a team house need to have the right incentive, right independence, and we also thought about partnering, with other global players, which we also spend a lot of time to do as well. But again, we needed, our focus was on the region, and we had to focus on finding the right way to do it in the region. To cut a long story short, our answer was to partner with, with a team that is independent, a team that understands the region, a team that went through a venture cycle, and based on that, we established NAWA, an independent venture capital fund, and that was our way to do it. Internally, we went through the process. We have more than 50% of our board members independent and officially approved, and we presented to them the business case, the pros and cons, and why we're doing it. And basically, this was our way to answer our corporate venture investment. Fast forward, we see today that this is yielding the right benefit for us today. First, it's an arm-length vehicle, so it is not impacted with the current business model and how we do things. Second, it allowed the group and the group portfolio company to pursue co-investment opportunity that is relevant to their business in order to support the digital journey of our portfolio company. Second, we're fortunate to attract the management team that is independent, but also incentivized by performance rather than pay salary check and hire them in-house, as a team. This is in a nutshell in terms of of the story, at least group with this regard.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry, I need to answer this way. So, not work, but I'll try to just to balance we started. So actually, the story of Riot started back in 2015. We had a plan to make corporate. So I'm sure that Nashif is here. He helped me kicking off the process of how to establish a business. And I think it was a bit naive right back then, because actually to really bring synergy between startups and corporates, you need to have a will from the chairman, from the board, and from the CEO, otherwise not, which is maybe the case of Jada much more than what we have done earlier. So what happened in Riot when we started at a corporate VC. Everyone was excited. We need to change. We need to invest in change. Why we don't really make the business? But when it comes to reality, when it comes to really creating the right synergy between startups and corporate, frictions are endless. And this is due to the different, and we are talking about two different animals. We are talking about corporate, more structured, more governed, and more stable, and startups, lousy, ungoverned, there is no compliance talks, all about growth and about discovery and about product market fit. So we started, I just remember two examples, like we started investing in Morni, which is more automotive and mobility technology, and Pitcher, which is more logistics technology. And why is that? Because I thought that maybe, because we have logistics company and we have also automotive company, I thought that people will come with more excitement from those two companies when I invested. But in reality, no, it wasn't. Both sides were like talking to each other, Chinese and Japanese. Nobody understands the other side. And this is where I think we realized that no, it's better for us to change our mandate from corporate venture capital, a more strategic driven investment. And that was not, didn't took us maybe time, it didn't take us time to realize that. So after 6 months of investment, we said that, okay, let's change the mandate to make it more financial. Unrelated to the corporate, we want just to seek the best deals out there and to invest. Since that time, which was about May 2016, we started to be purely financial driven. And from that point, I think Smart has started, which is now balanced between initial back by a family, so family office, and then emerging like institutional, fully independent VC, which is what's happening.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm going to turn to you now. You've invested for a long time, and you've done every style of investment possible. You've invested individually in portfolio companies. You invested through funds. You invested through club deals. You invested. Just explain to me a little bit what's sort of the style of investment that is closest to your heart that you find more exciting.
Do you want to know in which asset class I've lost more money? Is that
Actually, I'd rather or winning more money or like gaining.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Jada for putting this entire couple of day session on, and I'd like to thank Mazen. There aren't many places in Saudi you can go for hummus and challah in the same evening, and Mazen is a remarkable host. Thank you very much. So I think I like to get my hands dirty, and if I had to think where I might have made more money, it might have actually been picking some extraordinary funds early on for investors in a fund called Rivet Capital. I don't think I brought Aaron into the deal, but I know he's pretty active in that deal. So 50 or 60x in its first fund. It's been a remarkable run, and all of their subsequent funds have done really well. So kind of the money comes in a little more rapidly there in some of the things that I've done, but there's no real fun in doing that. I don't think ultimately that it's anything more than asset allocation. Build companies. When you roll up your sleeves, meet with the entrepreneurs, when you delve into the ecosystem, that's where all the action is. That's where the fulfillment is. That's where you do for your soul, and also do for your pocketbook. If you look at an ecosystem like Saudi, where I've been coming back and forth for the past couple of years, and you watch how it's grown and how from the early days here, just a couple, 3 years ago, venture capital for 20 years in a big way. When you watch how the level of excitement and camaraderie and ideas from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 100, 500, just in a couple of years, you really get to understand that if you roll up your sleeves and you help these entrepreneurs build companies, that you can benefit tremendously, but you also help to build ecosystems. Just like you guys have created in the corporate family and the family office, it can be done on an individual level. There's a good angel system here. We have some of the investors who are here with us a couple of days have done more angel deals than they've done in the whole country. They've done on their own accounts and truly building some of those companies. How do you take that knowledge? How do you figure out how to marry that knowledge with the energy, the capital markets, and the opportunities here? That's what the big upside is. Right?
Amazing. Okay, let's turn to Nate now. Hi, Nate. Can you hear us?
I can, and thank you again for having me.
No,
I apologize for not being in person. The pandemic got the better of me.
Well, I hope you're staying safe and it's not taking a toll on you.
No, I'm fortunate enough to be asymptomatic for the most part, outside of a sore throat and a light cough.
Amazing. Well, we hope you a very speedy recovery. My question to you is, in a previous conversation you and I had, you explained to me how a lot of you've received commitments from family offices that have never been exposed to the asset class in the past. If you can just talk to us a little bit about how that sort of journey, sort of educational journey you went through with these family offices and helping them sort of understand the asset class itself, understand the risks associated with it, and the potential rewards, and how, and sort of, how did you sort of get them to take that leap of faith with you?
Yeah, it's all rooted in actually how I first and our family got exposed to the asset class. We were very eager to jump right in, and we're fortunate enough to run into some kind and very experienced folks in the venture community to guide us towards slowing down, educating ourselves, and finding some managers to help us with that education process. And so along the way, we got introduced to a few funds. We're able to invest and slowly learn over time what venture was about, things to look for in investments. And over the years, they were helpful enough in guiding us to potential side investments along or investing alongside of the funds that they ran currently, so providing us with direct investment opportunities. And that is something that we've continued to preach from day one. We've been fortunate enough to run into people who have come into a lot of wealth in a short amount of time, whether that be through sports, successful business ventures, any number of ways, but they all have a way of finding entrepreneurs, whether that be of high or low quality, to present them with ideas and no real guidance as to how to vet which one, or I guess vet one from the other. And that, I think, comes with one, experience, pattern recognition, having an understanding of what the trends are, what is being built, why certain technologies are important. And for us, we continue to try. We were again helpful. We were being helped by a close family friend of ours, and we continue to do that for as often as possible when it comes to family offices. And it's not a pitch for them to come and invest in our fund necessarily. We help guide them, help them meet any other fund that they would have interest in investing in. Things that we do advise is internal thought. Have a plan going into what you want to invest in. Find a manager that you trust, and have a conversation around expectations, whether that be kind of just asset allocation, as you mentioned, being set it and forget it, send the money and receive quarterly or annual updates from that firm, or be a little more proactive, especially if you want to evolve your model a little bit, be a little more aggressive. Find ways to actively invest or co-invest with the fund that you've trusted your income and your wealth to. That way, if you do want to start doing more and more direct investments, it's through and over time, you'll be more and more educated in the ways in the ways that the venture works and things to be wary of, both when investing in entrepreneurs, what stage you want to look at. There's a variety of things that go into it, and it's a full-time job looking for the best deals, and it's a competitive market, more and more so each day as more and more money enters the markets.
Thank you so much. And thank you for alluding to your educational journey as a family office into this asset class. It's actually quite inspiring. You're figuring out what you know and what you don't know, and how you sort of grew your sort of acumen in this space, similarly to other journeys here. Ziad, being a 7-8 billion riyal conglomerate, and being exposed to multiple sectors, and how does the venture strategy sort of integrate with the existing business lines that Al-Faisaliya is exposed to?
Thank you. Good question. So I think we're trying to do two things. First, to know where we can pivot. And to industry or sectors that we are not in. So this is one of the strategic rationale, because we believe that new business model, new ventures have opened the door for us to, over time, alter our portfolio and position ourselves in the area that we are not in. So this is one way that we are, that the venture investment, the co-investment will serve us to explore what would be the future portfolio look like, and also, gradually pivot that. So that's about more of the future. About the current, we're doing co-investment opportunity that link to our 3 pillars of focus, the group, which is around healthcare, consumer business, and media. So we are, we're investing in spaces to enable our current portfolio. So we invested in, for example, in food service platform, and we have a good funnel there. Keep deploying corporate venture into these verticals that we are in, and allow our current management team that is probably investing in more traditional type of business to understand this new economy and maybe find some synergistic opportunity. So we are not trying to change our current portfolio company. We're trying to expose them. We're trying to keep them in this ecosystem. We have, for all of our portfolio company, or at least that has digital dimension, we have a digital committee, and it's not led by anyone other than of the portfolio company. So it's a journey. It's not going to be one step, but this is how it's delivered to us.
Thank you. Umar, it's almost the same question, but I alluded to the fact that you are sort of independent now, you are sector agnostic, you're not focusing on the verticals that the family used to be exposed to. But still, do you still see potential for realizing some like leverage to get into certain deals, that just having that exposure as a family office to the automotive sector or the logistics sector?
So definitely, yes, for sure. Whenever when it comes to logistics technology and, for example, somehow mobility technology, I think still there is something that we can provide in addition to other barriers that right. So of course, I was talking the story of Ra'ad exceptional back in 2015, but the Majdoui holding now something much more fundamental. So now there is much more awareness about imported technology, more talented people in the company to make sure that there are level of synergies that they can do. So definitely it's different. It's different. But in principle, what's the relationship between Ra'ad and the Majdoui holding is the family office, mainly, not the corporate. So this is where I think it's more different, or more of a financial direction of the company than going to this direction. So this is where I think the difference between us and NOAA, that we are actually, the priority now for us is to create synergies, not necessarily, the priority of Majdoui synergies is much less, number 5 or 6 in terms of priority. Number 1 is how to really create synergies in Ra'ad network. This is, I think, what makes us much better than relying depending on the
Nate, you mentioned something very interesting earlier around you investing in the sports space. Those of you who don't know, Nate's father is Joe Montana, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Tell us a little bit about your venturing into that space. What sort of value you bring in as an investor into the portfolio businesses you invest in?
Yeah. we actually made a concentrated effort early on to not invest in sports companies to avoid being pigeonholed quickly into a sports-specific fund. We wanted to remain generalists, and I can go into why there, but in terms of value add, it's a continuous, it's a continuous cycle. It's a never-ending job, and we invest. We're a co-investing size fund, so we invest smaller checks. We don't lead traditional venture rounds, but what we do is we do come in and help out the round in a strategic manner to provide value to portfolio companies in ways that, and a great deal of it is thanks to the network that we've produced, or the network that we bring to our day-to-day operations, whether that be through Joe's Fortune 500 connections. We're in a very fortunate position with him in terms that when a portfolio company wants an introduction to a large Fortune 500 company, there's very few CEOs currently that won't pick up the phone for Joe. But in addition to that, two of our other partners are former founders themselves. I have this operational background as well. And so along the way, being able to be kind of an independent sounding board for these young founders, kids that are 20 to 26, first-time founders that have an idea how to solve a problem, or are on the bleeding edge of some technology but don't know how to run an operation or run a company. And so we can help provide stepping stones for them and be a sounding board as to here are some of the bottlenecks that you may run into going down this alley versus the way we did it at our company, or our partner Mike with Michael's company. We found success going through these channels, and let me connect you to my former co-founder. He has some technical talent that we may be able to provide for you. So it comes in a variety of forms, whether that be partnerships, revenue-driven introductions, operational expertise, or general guidance as to, say, XYZ fund led their Series A. They may be asleep at the wheel come time for their Series B. We can go out into our network of venture connections and say, hey, so-and-so's company is on a tear right now. We think XYZ fund's asleep at the wheel. Let's get these founders in front of you and help them raise a Series B or a Series A, whatever stage the company may be at.
Thank you so much. I think we have time for any questions. Open it up for questions. You've been visiting Saudi for the better part of the last 3 years. Share with us some insights, some thoughts on any specific sectors you think it's hot, a specific sector you think it's growing, a specific stage that you like you've built sort of an affinity for, that you think you'll be able to sort of attract a lot more deal flow within. Just a little bit of your journey. You've been seeing Saudi how it was 3 years ago and how it is today, because I know it's very different. We're very close to this, so how has that been for you?
It's actually different every 3 months. So you can actually put your finger on the pulse and feel a difference. You're actually very lucky here in Saudi because pretty much everybody reads from the same book. You have an extraordinary leader who set Vision 3030. You can travel the entire planet, maybe the whole globe, or galaxy, I suppose, and not really find another situation where you as a country know where you're going to be, plus or minus 6, 7 years from now. And I think that playbook is specific around, it's no longer going to be an oil. The new oil is data, technology, and everyone understands that. And the way you're going to get there is starting companies, entrepreneurs. So I think that first and foremost, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. They may not know it yet, but eventually that's going to end up. And if the government would stop paying people so well, I actually think that people must probably have a lot more entrepreneurs, a lot more rapidly, as opposed to the side point. But the second thing I'd say is that there are certain sectors in which has a huge value and advantage not just for the 35 or 40 million Saudi, but also for the 400 million GCC and the 1.4 million Muslims globally. We're really the epicenter of all of that. So how do you look at applications or programs or products that you can bring to market that has, not the 300 million we have in the US, et cetera, really has an amazing global opportunity. So one of those, of course, is logistics. And I know that Alan is going to speak that later, and he's really one of the foremost guys in the world on logistics and adopting logistics, old processes to new processes. And so you have that opportunity here because of Aramco, because you're a global hub for so many other places. So logistics is going to be something that's really critical, I'd say, number one. Number two, look at what you're doing in digital health. First of all, it's a clean slate. And when you work with a white sheet of paper, make mistakes, also knows that it'll tell you that you made the mistake because you're kind of doing it from scratch. So in the digital health space, we have very little today. We have a great system of doctors, hospitals, how do you do medicine? How do you learn from what other people have done in the region? I think digital health space, that's going to just explode here. And of course, thirdly, look at our friend from the PIF who has all the investing, our friend Mr. Al-Sheikh, who has all the investing for all the banks and fintechs. You're an economic hub. You have a lot of money. How are you going to work with crypto? How are you going to work with those things? So it's again a paper. And I think if you take all the customers, the knowledge, what you've done in the past, and you adopt that knowledge, it's great space. So I'd say those are the three problems here in the kingdom.
Thank you so much. I think we're just about running out of time. Just trying to open the floor for some questions.
Hello, Shane from Shulka Partners again. A quick question for the panel is, how can we encourage more corporates and also family groups for more corporates to work with the startups? Because the reason I asked is, I think our region has seen a lot of good B2C related companies, and we are starting to see a bit more of a shift, hopefully, on the B2B, but part of that, in my view, the biggest obstacle is the corporates are still having a huge reluctance to work with the startups, and if they work with it, they don't pay enough for the startups, etc. So I'm just curious to get families who actually own corporates, like how can we foster as a group to work between corporates and the startups?
I shouldn't answer, but when you say corporates, do you mean family offices or like SMB and the big banks?
Institutions. It doesn't have to be family-owned or corporate.
Yeah, so I visited quite a few of the chairmen here, and I have to say I've been quite frustrated in meeting with them because in a sense, either they know how to do it better or it's not needed. And so one of the tacks that I know we've taken, and I'm sure you guys have a different angle on this as well, is they don't exactly know what it is, what we do. They don't quite understand. It's not America, it's not other places in the world like Berlin, where if you talk to Daimler, they won't do a thing without, we do a lot of work with Daimler, they won't do a thing without talking to the person who runs the tech startup, the high tech, the innovation. That's how they breathe. They make cars, but they know that they're in the innovation business. And here, many of the corporates don't seem to totally understand that. First of all, they've minted a lot of money for a very long time, right? And so why change the formula? And secondly, since we don't have a lot of startups yet, it's a chicken and egg. So when I meet with these folks, what I talk to them about is first use cases and examples from other countries and other places. Secondly, you offer them something. Not a bribe, God forbid, but you offer them some form of quid pro quo. I'll give you 3 programmers, engineers, and some capital, but I need the same thing from you. And we're going to solve a problem that you have, not that I have. And so if we can understand what your problems are, what your issues are, let's create a company together. Let's do a build. Let's solve a problem for you. But not only say, gimme, 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 we're going to give you, we'll do this together. Oh, and by the way, if we figure this out together, we can go sell this for $1 billion or 5 or 10 billion because the demand is going to be a global demand. And so I think part of the problem is they don't totally understand what it is we do for a living. Secondly, what is it that they can get out of it? And thirdly, the risk profile, meaning they're people, what I try to explain to them, their best people are going to leave. If not today, tomorrow, they're all going to work for the companies that we're funding. Let's kind of cut that off and create a corporate venture capital group, around 2 people, or 5 people, or 10 people, and help to create that culture within your bank, within your company. And I think we're moving the needle. As everything here takes time, patience, but I think we're moving the needle.
Yeah, Amar.
I think it's a tough thing. I mean, we don't have the mindset at the top. It's very difficult. I think maybe COVID have accelerated the awareness, and as they see more success of some of the companies that went IPO and the amount of valuation that was created 4 or 5 years, maybe this would trigger. But it also needs a change of mindset and allowing to coexist with others as an investor. Allowing to know that if you don't do anything, you will be disrupted. And these capabilities are not easy to build in-house. So I think this level of self-awareness, will take time. And if it's not in the top, it's difficult to, really incorporate it, because that means you need to invest time and effort, in understanding something new, something that different than what you have been doing for the past 20, 30 years. And you will have to assume that what you have learned, you need to unlearn some of it and learn something new. And that is difficult for any kind of person, but let alone someone that have been successful for 20, 30 years with a lot of money and believe that he has all the reason to be successful now and the future. So if there is no top of mind, our self-awareness, I think this is the challenge, and that's why it creates an opportunity for people that want to struggle. So that's why I think there are great opportunities in our market, and specifically this market for startup.
And in summary, unless we see people like you, Shane, leading these companies, I think it's difficult to create meaningful synergies. Very, very difficult. Totally different mindset. But definitely the more young and more educated and more, let's say, up-to-date people going to the leadership of these companies, I'm sure that there are more and more synergies that can be created. Number 2 is the level of pain. I think some industries, they feel pain because of the technology transformation or conversion, and this is where I think those guys are much more encouraged to seek synergies and to seek the partnerships, these type of things, versus others like what we are seeing now in banks in Saudi Arabia or the GCC. They are very relaxed bodies, very relaxed animals, because actually they don't feel that there is disruption happening from fintechs in the region. Due to several reasons, I don't want to tap those reasons, but the point is that until those banks started to see serious competition from startups and from fintechs, those guys will entertain profit. As long as they are entertaining steady growing profit, they will be always relaxed and always protective to their achievements and to their assets. And this is where I think it's difficult. And this is where maybe, especially in fintech, in financial technology, the change should start from the regulator, not from the banks. And regulators should be unregulating, should be deregulating, not regulating, to make sure that they can enable more and more minds, innovative minds, smart minds, to think of how to really create much better services, much better inclusion to people in the region and outside the region. So this is what I think, especially to those people, and a level of pain and level of ambition every quarter.
Any examples you can shed light on of like a traditional business in your portfolio leveraging synergies with a technology business that you're also sort of exposed to?
Sure, it was the question around how to get corporates to better interact with young startups.
Exactly.
It is a frustrating process. In our experience, the most success, or the way we found the most success in getting them to engage, is finding an internal champion. And I'm not, I'm speaking from our experience only, but finding an internal champion, whether that be in the corporate or especially in government in the U.S., it is almost impossible to get something through unless you have somebody that knows who the person that actually moves the needle is. And if you can get to that person or have that person be your champion, then your chance of success goes through the roof. Outside of that, outside of finding an internal champion, showing an exorbitant amount of value outside of it or independently from their help is always a way to catch their attention. But it's easier said than done. But in our experience, in the way that we've been able to most successfully help our portfolio companies either win a deal or push something through is finding the people that move the needle internally, and having a conversation with them, providing the points of value, why it's important to do this, and moving forward from there.
Thank you so much. Other questions?
We have time for one more question.
Walid Abdullah from Circular Ventures. Very insightful session. My question is, what's your advice for us VCs in terms of how we think about family offices? What kind of misconceptions or mistakes do we make when we think about family offices or engage with them?
Very, very good question. Actually, these times very difficult. Actually, we sat with one of the experts, one of the family businesses in US 2 weeks ago, and he showed us very interesting analysis showing that although there is a very interesting increase in the value of my investments in VCs, I mean, this guy, this family office, is experienced family office who used to invest in top-tier VCs in US. But what his observation was, although there is a very, very strong increase in TVPR, in value of the funds, we see also steady decrease of DBIs. And this is a sign of bubble creation, or what they call it, something like inflation, inflated prices. Prices that are not necessarily creating real value. And this is what I think very interesting learning from this guy. So the outcome of this observation is when I should reinvest in this asset class again. This is his question. So he said that because I'm family office, because I'm purely financial driven, I'm not like sovereign fund or pension fund or whoever, I don't have other source of money for this asset class but from the asset class itself. And I need to recycle my money. And if there is no DPI, I can't recycle my money. Very interesting dynamics that we need to be aware of to make sure that when we start heading to family offices that are more experienced and more knowledgeable, and they have also heavy investments in this asset class, we need to make sure that we need to position ourselves as DPI creators, and of course, value creators, but DPI creators. And this is where I think it's very, very important, especially when it comes to industry or countries like US and others. But when it comes to Saudi Arabia, the story is different. What the challenge is not to prove only DPI, but also to prove that this asset class is a legit asset class, is something that will create value for sure. And this is where I think our challenge in Saudi Arabia is to convince family offices and wealthy people to make sure to put disposable portion of their wealth in this asset class to create faster value in the market. And I think this is where we need to think about when it comes to raising from family offices. experienced people, DPI-driven dogs, and especially in these circumstances, not necessarily across all stages, but in these circumstances, we need to focus on how to really be meaningful DPI creators for them. And number two, when it comes to Saudi Arabia and GCC, how to educate them about the importance of this asset class and the feasibility of this asset class in the next 3 to 5 years minimum. So this is my thoughts about family office general.
If I would add, I would differentiate between family office that have an investment program, and naturally that this will fall very well in their investment program, and family office or family business that have an active operating assets. So I would add that family office that have an operating asset is how can you be relevant to their operating strategy. So if they are healthcare focused, how is your strategy can enable them through the fund and through the co-investment. So they know that this is, you are an extended corporate venture yourself, rather than do it in-house. You are the added value, partner for them to share. So that would be my advice. In addition, what I would say.
First of all, there were at least 4 people I watched create named DPIcreators.com. There are at least 4 new funds that came out of your idea, by the way. This is good. Second thing is, I think I would answer a little differently. Our asset class is the sexiest asset class that there is. And I think that addressing the gap between the boring father or the boring grandfather and the son or grandson that really wants to move these assets around and figure out what to do with them is the approach that I think might make a lot of sense, particularly here. So there's a fund called CEDRA, one of the great funds we like here, and it's just 4 great families, and the difference between what the grandfather did and the kids are doing, and you can really be inspired by that, and somehow or other they figured out how to tap that vein. But I think locally, family offices, when you go to meet with family office managers, etc., they want to know what's new and interesting and what the future looks like, and maybe they'll sacrifice a little bit on the DDPI or the ROI or all those different acronyms, and if you can figure out how to loop them into that energy, we found that to be a very good way to work with family.
Anything to add, Nathaniel?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's enough. I don't know. But we're running out of time anyway, so thank you anyways. So yes, please help me send a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time and being with us here today. Thank you, Nathaniel, and we hope to see you in the next trip.
Thank you for having me. I wish I was there.